Today's podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. When it comes to home and auto insurance, it's important to have the right coverage from a company and an agent you can trust. Someone who will help you properly protect the people and things you love the most. So if the unexpected happens, you and your family can rest insured. To request a free quote, find your local KFB insurance agent at mykfbagent.com. Kentucky Farm Bureau, big on commitment. Welcome to Kentucky Farm Bureau News, the podcast. I'm Tim Thornberry, editor of the Kentucky Farm Bureau News magazine. We're honored today to have Kentucky Farm Bureau's president, Eddie Melton, and we are talking farmland transition. Eddie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tim. It's great to be with you. And we've survived a weekend of a lot of rain this weekend, but glad to be here with you this morning.
It has rained for sure. I'm sure yourself included. It's put everybody behind on the planting scene, hasn't it?
It probably has, but, Tim, try to look on the bright side of it. It could have been a lot worse, but we have had a lot of flooding and issues around the state, and I hate that for those folks, and hopefully we come out on the other side of this soon.
Absolutely. Eddie, we're talking about farmland transition. I know that Farm Bureau, it's been a year since the Kentucky Farmland Transition Initiative began, and a lot has happened in that year. So if you don't mind, for those folks out there who may not know what that is, if you could give us a little refresher on it and how it all began.
So probably, as you said, we have launched the initiative on, I think, April the 9th of last year. But for a few months before that, this is something that I've been passionate about and talked about for a while. And, when I first started thinking of this a few years ago, it was about young and beginning farmers being able to buy land, because if you own your land, you're more profitable. And I think that's one barrier that we have for young people to come into farming, is that profitability. It's hard to start out, and it's hard to get the assets to do it. And I thought, is there something that we can do for beginning and young farmers to be able to help them buy land? And I know in 2019, Senator David Givens worked with us in the Selling Farmer Tax Credit, and I can't say enough about Senator Givens and what he's done for us on the state level, and started this the Selling Farmer Tax Credit that we started in 2019. And he found some dollars that we could incentivize some people to sell to a young or a beginning farmer. And as we moved through that, there were some people that used that program, but probably didn't get the uptake that we really originally thought it would do. And so in thinking about that, and I worked with Alita Botts, which was the executive director of KCARD, which is the Kentucky Center for Ag and Rural Development. And Alita is passionate about this also, and she and I worked together. I was on that KCARD board and worked with Alita that. And so as she had stepped away from KCARD, and we were talking about maybe doing something with farmland and the transition of it. And so we tapped her to come in and be a coordinator for the project for us. And so we were talking all this time leading up to April of last year about how we could do this and what we could do. And it's just been a program that has sparked a lot of interest, I think, with our members and people all across the state. And I couldn't be happier with where we are. I know we've got probably a lot of things to talk about, Tim, but that's kind of the start at it. And we sat down as a leadership team and thought this was a project that we could take on. And with Alita's help and our staff, I can't say enough about our staff and the work that's been done, because there's been a lot of work done on this in the past year.
Eddie, if memory serves me correctly, we were looking at 2022 ag census numbers, and it really, I won't say it served as a wake-up call, but sort of disturbing to see where we had come as far as this issue goes in the last 5 years. Those numbers really, and we went back even further, those numbers really were sort of alarming, don't you think?
They were, that probably sparked us to push this out a little quicker than what we'd originally thought about doing. in March of last year, those numbers are that came out for the 2022 census from 2017 to 2022. And it said that we'd lost about 6,500 farmers and we'd lost well over 500,000 acres of farmland. And, you say that in passing and you say it pretty quick, but if you think 100,000 acres a year and 270 to 290 acres every day that we lose in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, it's time to step up and say, wait a minute, we need to take a look at this. Because, Tim, in our opinion, as an organization, if we wait too long to start something, then we may be too far down the path that we can't come back. And it's going to take some work probably to slow this down. And, we're always going to be for private property rights. If you own a farm, you ought to be able to do what you want to with it. But are there things that we can do to educate people, to incentivize people, to keep this land in production agriculture? And going back to the young farmer piece that we talked about earlier, let's find a way that we can do it for active farmers, because it's going to take all of us to try to do something. I'm all for those beginning and young farmer programs, and we're going to push those as much as we possibly can. In fact, updating the selling farmer tax credit this year, actually there are more dollars going to those young and beginning farmers, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But trying to keep this land in production agriculture, because, Tim, we have to be able to feed ourselves and clothe ourselves and fuel ourselves. Those things are the important pieces of what we do in agriculture, and we have to continue to do that because we don't want to import those products. And as we know today, that would be even more expensive as we're talking about tariffs and things that are going on right now. So for today, that's where we are with it today. Let's grow it here. We've proved in agriculture that we can produce, and a lot of times we can overproduce. So we can grow it and we can produce it, but we just need to find a home for it, and let's do it on land that we own.
Eddie, we've often said that food security is national security, and while some people may not completely understand what that means, we are really seeing that as being it is more true today than it's ever been. We've got to be able to feed ourselves, because if we get to the point where we can't, it becomes, in my opinion, it becomes a matter of, can we afford it from someone else, or will they even sell it to us? So this, I don't want to say it's at a critical level, but it's way up there as far as priorities, I would think.
It sure is, and you said, can we afford it? But also, is it safe? I think that's a key thing for
Very
us
true.
in agriculture, is that we want to make sure that we have a safe and abundant food supply that is affordable. And we know we can do that in this country. And, I think one of the main things we need to do, and I know our Commissioner Jonathan Schell's working on a lot of initiatives, we need end users in this state. If we can grow those products here locally and in Kentucky, but let's find those end users, because when you put an end user there, that takes out someone in the middle there that has to make a profit also. So I know he's working on initiatives, and we work with him closely on some of those. So I think that's a great thing that he's working on here. He says agriculture is economic development, and it actually is.
Speaking of that, we've got a network of folks out there, 28, I think, at last count, that have joined our efforts. There are commodity groups and organizations, other organizations connected to agriculture throughout this year. That's really probably I would say it's got to really make you feel good to see how much support this initiative has gotten over the past year.
I couldn't be happier that everybody sees this as it's the issue of the day, maybe, because it is important. And I think that census showed us that it is an alarming number. Those groups, all those commodity groups and ag groups across the state, see this as an important issue, that we have to protect this farmland. And actually, I think a lot of our elected officials have noticed this too, that, hey, this is something that needs to take a high priority. And I'm so glad that those 28 groups have joined with us, because this is bigger than just any one organization. We can take this initiative on, but if we all work collectively to do something, the power in numbers can show true. And I think that's why this is showing up the way it has, is that everybody has joined along beside us. We're working together. We're talking to each other. I know Renee Carrico on our staff in the commodity division is working with all those commodity groups out there. So she's doing a great job along with Alita and, of course, our national affairs, Erica King. Erica's out there working every day on the national level and also working with those groups to keep everybody informed about what we're doing and where we're going with this initiative. And I couldn't be happier with those groups partnering with us to see what we can accomplish here.
You know, speaking of national attention, I went back and looked at, and I am truly not a statistics person, believe me, but I went back and looked at some USDA ag census numbers since 1997. We have seen nationally a consistent, and I won't say that every year it was a great loss, but consistently loss of farms land that has acreage that's been farmed, I should say. So this is not just Kentucky. This is a problem everywhere, and I think we've had some folks, some outreach from other states that have been very supportive of this initiative, and they're going through the same thing.
We have. You know, I serve on the American Farm Bureau Board of Directors representing Kentucky, and I know our friends across to the south of us in Tennessee have been working on some things for a number of years on their state level. And when we started this initiative, I've got to talk to a lot of those state presidents all around the country, North Carolina, Missouri, Indiana, a lot of the southern states are seeing the same issues that we are. And so hopefully that with American Farm Bureau's backing, we can do something, hopefully, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it a little bit here in a little bit, but about something on the national level that we're working on, and couldn't be more excited about that.
Let's start with the state. I know that you were talking about the selling farmer tax credit. We had an update to that this year in the General Assembly, correct?
We sure did. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What was that about, and what does that do to the original bill?
So the original bill gave you up to $100,000 tax credit over a 4-year period. It was $25,000 per year was the maximum. Now, and it's according to what the state tax rate is, how that plays out. But as that played out, you could get up to a maximum of $100,000 tax credit that would be off your taxes if you sold your farm to a beginning or a young farmer. And again, as we talked about earlier, we wanted to see if we could update that and get that to an active farmer. So we sat down and a Representative Myron Dossett out of Christian County, he sponsored a bill for us, and we worked through it with him. And of course, it got late in the session, this being a short session, and so it got put into another bill. A revenue bill there at the end, House Bill 775, I believe was the number. And what the bill is going to do now is that bill is going to not only do that for active farmers, that $25,000 with a maximum of $100,000, but if you're a beginning or a young farmer, it's going to double that up to $50,000. So we couldn't be more excited about that. And as that moves through, again, I can't say enough about Senator Givens and Representative Dossett. You know, he's the ag chair in the House now, the work they did, and then the leadership in both the Senate and the House to bring this to fruition for us, that it's another tool in the toolbox. Tim, there's one thing that I think we're going to have to do is we've got to find a lot of different tools that we can use to do this. I know the North Carolina president and I were talking about this one day, and he said there's not going to be one silver bullet probably that's going to be able to cure this problem. We're going to have to take a shotgun approach. We're going to have to take a lot of different ideas and implement a lot of those ideas. And I think that's one thing that the network is going to give us of what we talked about, is that network, as our partners come up with ideas, let's get together, let's talk about those things, and let's implement those and see what we can do.
You know, speaking of state legislators, we're a rural state still, primarily, and we've got a great group of legislators that are in tune to agriculture. And that's not always the case in other places. So that really has been a big advantage to us, not only for this issue, but ag issues in general, don't you think?
It sure does. And, Kyle Kelly does a great job as our lobbyist there in Frankfurt and talking to our legislators and informing them and educating them about why we want to do these things and what we're going to do. So we're really excited to get that one across the finish line this year and get it implemented here. And then we've got to get the word out, Tim, about this, that this is out there, that people can use this. And so once this goes into effect, we've got to get busy to tell people that this is out there, and hopefully that people are wanting to transition their farm for whatever reason knows this is out there and their accountants understand it, and that we can use this program to help this go to active farmers. And as those beginning and young farmers, they're going to double down on this. So that's going to be a really big thing for us, I think.
In staying in the legislative vein here, we've got a pretty big hitter at the national level, too, for Kentucky agriculture, and our U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell. He has served on the Ag Committee in Washington since day one, since he got there, and always been a friend to farmers here in Kentucky. He has a pretty important role to play in national legislation that sort of stems from this initiative. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. We once we got to talking about the selling farmer tax credit in Kentucky, what can we do on a national level? And so we as a group sat down as our leadership team and our staff and Alita, what can we do on a national level? And we were looking through American Farm Bureau policy and came up with I hear oftentimes people say, I would sell my farm, but I don't want to pay all those capital gains taxes. And it is significant, that you've got the gain over all those years of whatever your cost basis is and what you sell it for. So we came up with something, and we took it to Senator McConnell back in July of last year. We were in D.C., and Alita and Eric and I met with Senator McConnell and told him about a plan we had here. And it was basically almost like the selling farmer tax credit, but it's on a national level to do with the capital gains tax. So the bill that he's introduced, the Protecting American Farmlands Act, that he's introduced right now. I think it's Senate bill, is it 903 or 930, which one? I think it's 903. But anyway, so he's introduced that bill, and we're excited that he's willing to take this on. But it will allow you to, if you sell your farm, if you want to sell your farm and transition out of it, that you can take those proceeds, the gain of those, and put it in a qualified retirement account, and then let those monies grow for you. And then at the end of that it's deferring the tax, Tim, on the back end, and your money can grow for you in the market over a period of time. We're not trying to change anything about retirement accounts, as long as it's a qualified retirement account. And then, of course, you have to take those minimum required distributions at age 73 and take those out over the next 10 years. So we're excited that Senator McConnell has again partnered with agriculture here in the state of Kentucky, and he's done an amazing job over the years taking care of agriculture and serving on the Ag Committee. And this, again, is another thing that he's willing to take on and work with us on to see what we can do to help keep this land in active farmers' hands.
We recently had a press conference about this, and we brought folks to the table. We had the Department of Ag representative, University of Kentucky, was there, obviously Senator McConnell, yourself, and Matt Adams. Matt's a farmer down in Hardin County who himself went through a transition a few years back. It's a real model situation for him. Obviously, not everybody can end up that way, but he has been a real spark for this. I think the thing that Matt says most often is all they were asking for was an opportunity. And that's really all we're asking for, isn't it? An opportunity to help new and young farmers get started, because we're going to need them.
That's absolutely true, Tim. I appreciate Senator McConnell and his staff to put together a press conference at UK at the Good Barn, and Dean Stevenson to actually host us there and have that press conference there. And And of course, the Commissioner of Agriculture couldn't be there, but he sent Warren Beeler to be there with us. But Matt and Molly Adams, they kind of brought it to life for us. Matt is the example of what we're trying to do here, because he's kind of come through that program and had an opportunity that someone afforded him, and that's what we want to do. You know, I think the guy that he worked for on that farm, they knew what their dad's wishes were, and we've seen a lot of opportunities with that, even in Clark County. But that someone afforded an opportunity to a young or beginning farmer to keep them in production agriculture and give them that leg up, give them an opportunity to do something. And that's so admirable. You know, someone, if they have that passion of what they want their farm to be in the future, if we can couple that with the things that we want to do and that active or young and beginning farmer, that's the whole picture that we want to paint here with what we're trying to do.
You know, it's been a very eventful year, I think, and that may be an understatement. A lot has happened, but this is not an initiative that ends. It goes on and on. What do you see, and what would you like to see in the future for this?
Well, you know, Tim, we're working on some of the legislative pieces now, but I think one thing that Alita and Renee Carrico and Erica and Kyle, they've all been out there talking about this issue. And it's not only about legislation, but it is also about, even within families, of the transition and the education piece, transitioning farms to the next generation. You know, a lot of people want to keep that farm in their family, but they need to transfer it to the next generation. So we're offering education pieces and things out there, whether it be accountants or attorneys. At our annual meeting last year, we had a great group of attorneys and extension folks that were there to talk about ways that we can transition this land to the next generation. And if we can save one farm from a family going through sometimes what can be a tough situation, if we can help them get to a place to where that transition is made easier, and actually that the parents can get what they want out of it and get it moved to the next generation, it's a win for us. I know that we've had, we've probably, I think Alita's got some numbers together that we've probably been in front of about 3,000 people probably so far.
Correct.
That we've had meetings with all across the state of Kentucky. We've had almost 10,000 people visit the website and look at the Kentucky Farmland Transition .com website that's out there. And if someone wants to leave a message on that website, Alita will get back with you and talk to you, because sometimes these situations are hard to talk about in public meetings. We can sit down privately with you and do those things. She's available. Our staff's available. I just couldn't be happier with all the work that's been done so far. And we're going to continue on and try to see if we can do this. Extension has worked well with us. A lot of the commodity groups have had meetings and invited us to come in and be a part of that.
And, you know, of course, as a member benefit, or as a member organization, rather, our members are second to none when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to working on projects like this. I'm sure you've heard from a lot of them about this initiative over the past year.
You know, Tim, it's I knew that there was probably a need for it out there, but it's probably bigger than I thought it would be when we started it. And I know it's because of a lot of hard work of people, our communication staff. Y'all have been putting it out there, doing podcasts, talking about it, doing videos on it. We've been, we've got an amazing staff here that puts these initiatives out there. Somebody like me comes up with an idea, but it takes a lot of other people to implement it and make it happen. And that's what's happening here. And I think if we collectively, along with those 28 other groups that we've talked about here, that we can come up with not only the ideas that we've done so far, but I want more ideas. I want people bringing things to us and seeing what's the next step here, because I think this will continue on. I don't think it stops. And I want help on ideas that we can, what's the next step of this? What's the next piece of that shotgun approach that we're going to take?
Also, an understatement. You're pretty excited about this, aren't you? The way we're going, where we've come from, and where we're headed.
I couldn't be happier with from where we started a year ago, and just a thought that we had of, is there something we can do? We've got state legislation that is passed to help us. We've got a bill that we're working on in Washington, D.C. that not only can help farmers in Kentucky, but we can help farmers all across this nation to try to keep land in active farmers' hands, keep it in production agriculture for the future, because we have got to keep that land to where we can keep producing our agriculture products into the future. If we want younger people to farm, we talk about it. But if we don't have land and water, we don't have much in agriculture. Those are two things that are essential to us, but we also have to have a farmer there that's willing to take the risk to do what we do every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Eddie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Once again, our guest has been Kentucky Farm Bureau President Eddie Melton, talking farmland transition. For more information, you can go to kyfarmtransition.com. Appreciate you so much for being here.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Once again, thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. To hear this and other Kentucky Farm Life podcasts, we encourage you to subscribe to that on your favorite podcasting platform.